Everybody resonates with a story. Facts tell, stories sell. And I've made millions and millions of dollars as a speaker, but that's because I haven't focused on it. You don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak.
First time I spoke on stage, I was so nervous. But then when I got on stage and I started thinking, serve these people, I got really excited and I was in a flow state and I started to think about it. I told you, basketball. I would get so nervous for a game, but I was excited. That's all it was. Ball went up, I was in the game, ready to go. I was just excited. It's that same feeling though. You get the little butterflies in your hands, like a little feeling in your gut. It's excitement. I'm not nervous, I'm excited.
You got to have a calling to speak. So I always ask people 2 questions that help them answer whether or not they could possibly be a speaker. Not just a speaker, but become a full-time paid speaker. Reason leads to conclusions, but as emotion leads to action. So physiologically proven, when we only focus on the how and the what, we only engage the mind, we only engage the head, we only engage the brain. But when we add to that a passionate why and a compelling want, we connect the head with the heart.
Yep. You get on stage, you're walking up, you still probably get the butterflies, right?
Oh yeah, because
everyone does. Every big speaker out there gets them. You touch that mic, that's the trigger. Go time. Public speaking. So how did you become a professional speaker?
I don't think anyone can just wake up and say, I want to be a speaker. And we've all heard that the number one fear of people is the fear of speaking in public, and I disagree. The number one fear of people is not speaking well in public, because when you're prepared, you shall not fear. So I've taught public speaking. I've been doing this for 4 decades, and was named one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world. And I'm a primary contributor author to all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and I'm only sharing that because I'm a storyteller. Everybody resonates with a story. Facts tell, stories sell. In real estate, in personal coaching, in art, does not matter. It's the story. And so as a professor for the last 11 years, it's forced me to crystallize and quantify what I know about speaking, about how to, where do you find your content? How do you start a speech? How do you structure the speech? How do you hone in on your signature story? How do you create a signature speak that listeners love? And it all begins with the answer to your question, Devin. You got to have a calling to speak. So I always ask people 2 questions that help them answer whether or not they could possibly be a speaker. Not just a speaker, but become a full-time paid speaker. That people would want you on their program because of your message. And the 2 questions are simple. What would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? And if you wouldn't, it's not a calling, it's a job, which means you'll use every excuse under the sun not to show up. I've never missed a speech since 1982. I've given 6,000 speeches in 75 countries, worked with most of the Fortune 500 companies, Super Bowl champions, NASA, CIA, United Nations. I've gone downrange 8 times to Iraq and Afghanistan firing up our troops, and I've never missed a speech ever. And it's not because I'm such a noble human being. It's because, I get into my story of how I became a speaker, but I played football for 13 years and I was paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would not recover, I would never get any better. And in that process, I lost my identity. I thought I was a football player when in reality that's just what I did, not who I am as a man. And I figured out how to get back. I battled back to a 95% recovery. And so if something that I could possibly say in a speech to help someone save their marriage or to convince them that they're here for a reason, that they shouldn't take their life, if I could say something that would spawn them to get over the obstacle right now to continuously make their entrepreneurial dream come true, that's worth it to me. It's a calling. And the money takes care of itself.
Right.
And I've made millions and millions of dollars as a speaker, but that's because I haven't focused on it. You don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak. And then the second question is actually the tip of the spear. If you had 1 hour to live, what would you say? What's your last lecture? You have 2 beautiful children, a brand new dad as of 10 days. What would you go into a studio and record so that after you take your last breath, your children can see what dad had to say to the world, and you could convince your loved ones, your most precious individuals in your life, your children. Any male can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad, the lyrics to one of my hit songs. What message do you want to leave to them so that they know what it means to be a real man, to be a real dad, to be a compassionate servant leader, to use your platform and influence to change the world, to save people's lives? So that's the preamble to the answer to your question. But I want people to know that those are the lenses through which I see life and becoming a speaker. So I didn't set out to be a speaker. My signature story is basically, as I said, I played football. I was paralyzed in a tackling drill. 16 doctors, 15 told me I would not recover. And my life spiraled downward until I hit what I thought was rock bottom. And that's very significant to my story, because every single one of us have had an episode in our life, in a personal relationship, we've lost everything. We've had business partners screw us out of millions of dollars. We've had all these devastating, life-altering experiences. So the question is, so what are you going to do about it? Will you react or will you respond? And now that I've recovered, the 3 most frequently asked questions that I share with every audience. Number 1, what do you mean, Clark, that you hit rock bottom? The reality is nobody ever hits rock bottom, no matter how hard or bad it gets. Nobody ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values and governing principles on which we were raised. If you have anybody who's battled with addiction, one of my songs, it was the sickness that made me well. So we don't hit rock bottom. We just have to have that man in the mirror, that woman in the mirror experience. Like, okay, so who are you and what do you really believe? So the second question is, Clark, why did you go to so many different doctors? I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better, who reminded me that knowledge is power, but it has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. So the point is, reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. If you don't believe that, go talk to a realtor, figure out why someone finally pulls the trigger and says, I'll buy. So at some point, we've got to redefine, we've got to change our perspective. And the reason why perspective is so powerful is because it controls everything that we believe and do. So this doctor changed my perspective. He changed my attitude. He changed my probability into possibility. Let me give you a couple of quick examples of the power of perspective. Is your glass half empty or half full? Or is it refillable? It's perspective. Let's say that wall in the studio magically opens up, and Jacob, the amazing engineer, and you and I have a chance to look at the same lashing rainstorm, and one of us complains, what a horrible day, and someone else exclaims, what a wonderful day, the weather did not change. It's perspective. Another great example, are you taller, are you short, are you wide, are you thin, are you fast, are you slow, are you smart, or are you stupid? Are you pretty, or are you pretty ugly? Says who compared to what?
Right.
And Einstein reminds us everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it is stupid. Let's compare ourselves not against others, but against what we're capable of. We can get better if we're just willing to do what we have to do, put in the work, change our mindset, change our perspective. And from a perspective of relationships, our spouses, our significant others, parenting to our children, coaching, mentoring. As I coach speakers to become better public speakers or anybody, the best analogy is, let's say this side of my hand is painted white, this side is painted blue. What color is my hand? White, blue. Who's right? You all are, depending on your perspective. So in order for us to communicate at the deepest, most empathetic levels of total trust and understanding, we must be willing to come around on the other side of the hand. We must be willing to come around and see the other person's perspective and humble ourselves and actually acknowledge, yes, it is white or blue, which turns every single argument about who is right into an agreement on what is right so we can move forward together. I wish the politicians in Washington, D.C. understood that, because we could heal America.
I love it.
I wish we could catch on. So as I started to figure out a way to get better, the third most frequently asked question, the answer to that is really the essence of who I am and my message for everyone in every industry. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, figuring out the how-to becomes clear and simple. So back full circle, why would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? If you wouldn't, you can't be a speaker. It's not a calling. And it has to be a calling for you to be vulnerable enough to dig deep enough to figure out what solutions you can share with the world that will help someone else's heart heal, someone else's marriage heal, someone else's business heal. And I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. Once we answer why, figuring out the how-to becomes clear and simple. And so you don't think it's a rah, you can if you think you can recover from COVID. Real estate market's kind of tanked lately. So what do you say to the realtors? Just keep them fired up. You got to understand that after every storm, there's a rainbow. No matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future, but that's more rah. So physiologically, we know that when you only focus on the what and the how, You go to a real estate class and you understand the information. You go to get your insurance license. You only understand the information. You pass the test. You get your Series 6, your 63 or 65, whatever you have to do in the securities world. That's how to. That's lame. If you only focus on the how and the what as a communicator, you're a transactional guy. If you're a speaker and you only focus on the how and the what, here are my slides. I got 116 slides. You sit there and shut up. I'm still going to close past the sale. You're ready to sign the contract. And I'm like, no, sit there. Shut up. I still have 27 slides left on my presentation in my computer. How many salespeople do that? Reason leads to conclusions, but as emotion leads to action. So physiologically proven, when we only focus on the how and the what, we only engage the mind. We only engage the head. We only engage the brain. But when we add to that a passionate why and a compelling want, we connect the head with the heart.
Yep.
And physiologically proven, our blood pumps more rapidly, our brains fire, and our muscles engage. They magnify, which maximizes our performance. Mm-hmm. When you see an athlete get a second win, when you see somebody hustle, they have a reason to hustle because they know what the score is. When you hear stories about these heroic women, these petite, loving mothers who suddenly have the amazing Atlas-like strength to lift a car off of their little kid in an accident, and they go, oh my gosh, I have no idea how I did that. What we as leaders, what we as speakers, what we as coaches need to believe is that our calling is to help individuals access their hidden talent, to untap their hidden potential, to somehow reach into their heart and mind and soul and lift them up so they walk away saying, I know I can do this because you did it too. The purpose of a relationship is for everyone to leave saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. But why do people like us? It's because we've given them the vision, the hope, the roadmap. We've put gas in their Ferrari so they can drive at high speed. And we've given them permission to pull off and take a pit stop every once in a while. Make sure you fill back up your tank before you give more to others than you've given to yourself. And I haven't taken a breath for 77 minutes, but that's my answer. And it's a comprehensive answer of how did I become a speaker? As I started to get better, I was asked to speak because people wanted my message.
Yeah.
And in the speaker's world, I created what I call the speaker's triangle. It's in my book, Speak Like a Pro. It's also in my book, Story Selling. And it's an inverted triangle on purpose because it creates the funnel. And every person in this world craves the answers to 3 questions: one-on-one, 1-on-12 in a corporate board meeting, 1-on-20,000 in an arena. Question number 1, why should I listen to you? Have you done it or are you currently doing it? It's the credibility piece. And it turns decades into days if we can find someone who knows what we want to know, who's smarter than we are, and who can teach us. Question number 2, can I do it too? My past, with my weaknesses, with my limitations, and with my strengths. It's the possibility piece. Mm-hmm. So as speakers, if we stand up and everybody leaves me impressed with me, I blew it. Well, that was good. I got an adrenaline rush, standing ovation. Actually, last speech was great. They were doing the wave and naming their future children after me. It was pretty cool. Now, that's not what we do. Remember, you don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak. But if I dazzle the audience, if I rise to the occasion and prepare and know my audience and connect and engage, and they leave impressed with themselves, bam, he shoots, he scores. That's the purpose of bringing in a third-party validator for any company. That's the purpose of speaking, to change people's lives and give them the methodology and the structure that they can do to structure their story so that it's in a meaningful, organized way. And then the reverse triangle, which is the metaphor, the funnel. If you answer question number 1, credibility, if you answer question number 2, can I do it too? Then it begs the question, how do I do it? What's your system? Give me the plan of action. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? And that's the usability piece. So as a speaker, I was able to quantify the life lessons I learned from my recovery from my paralysis, because everybody needs to be an expert in resilience. And as I started to be asked to speak, it was amazing how I was asked to speak more and more. And people ask you don't have to pay to play. That's bogus. If you have something to say and you figured out how to say it right, and you have a message that's larger than yourself, you need to polish your presentation skills. And I just parlayed it into a full-time deal. And Zig Ziglar heard me, took me under his wing. I became his protege, sponsored in the National Speakers Association. Been doing it for 4 decades, and the rest is history.
That was my question. When was this? So like 40 years ago, huh?
1982.
Okay. So guys, longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've been alive since 1985. So put that in perspective.
Yeah, so I'd like to start this podcast over again and just make it for the geriatric ward here in Scottsdale, because there's at least 962 old people who can relate to me.
It's kind of crazy when you were telling the story. I draw some parallels with you and I, which is really cool. Like your identity was a professional athlete, lost his identity as an athlete, hit rock bottom. As you guys probably know, I used to be an athlete with bodybuilding. That was my identity. Everything I was my body, right?
Got it.
And I was so empty inside, searching for me when it was just superficial. It was what you see. There was no depth, right? Hit rock bottom and then started to work on myself. And then you talk about when you get on stage, making it about somebody else. If there's one person out there that can resonate with this message, it's worth it. And that's the one thing I had to learn when I spoke on stage. First time I did it, I was terrified. I'm sweating, like armpit stains. I get up there and I'm like, oh, what are people going to think? What are people going to think? It's about me, right? The second I start thinking, well, I've got so much knowledge I can give this person, that person, this person, that person. That person might change their entire life listening to it. That's when
Yep.
it's easy. That when then you're in a flow state and then you get off stage and you are at an all-time high. I get a high from speaking on stage now, you know?
You seek to bless, not impress, but we get more out of it than they do.
Right. Right.
And you know what it does is it forces us, as I say, we got to be the same off stage as we are on stage, was my compliment to you. But to your point, if you're nervous before you speak, that means you think it's about you. But if you're excited before you speak, it means you know it's about the audience. And chemically, it's the exact same chemical in our brain, fear and excitement, nervousness and excitement. So all we have to do to change our state, to put us into the flow state, to become that servant leader is to do exactly what you just said. You suddenly and instantaneously make it about the other person. And suddenly, when you're prepared, you shall not fear.
That's crazy too, because you were talking about perspective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Easy to change perspectives. Hand white or the hand blue? Depends on what your perspective is, right? So when I used to play basketball in high school, I would get so nervous for a game, but I was excited. That's all it was. Ball went up. I was in the game, ready to go. I was just excited. It's that same feeling though. You get the little butterflies in your hands, like a little feeling in your gut. It's excitement. I'm not nervous. I'm excited. Same thing when I get on stage now. I get that same feeling, but I'm not nervous. I am excited to pour into these people.
Let's talk about that twilight, that tweak that changes everything in an instant. It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action.
Say that again.
It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action. So it's the action that creates the good feeling. It's not the good feeling that creates the action. It's not the sugar that makes the tea sweet. It's the stirring. It's the process. So I used to return kickoffs and punts. And the only time I ever made a highlight film of the season was when the cameraman focused in on me before the kick or the punt. And I'm fixing my pads, I'm flipping. I lose like 30 pounds of water weight before the dude even kicks the ball. But to your point, bro, the second I touched the ball, nervousness went immediately into excitement, high performance, and never again for the entire 60 minutes of the game was I nervous.
Right.
So you think about what you just taught the world, bro, it's deep. The second you get the microphone, walking onto the stage for a Hall of Famer, walking onto the stage, you're still nervous. You're still human. You're like, man, I am fired up. But man, the second you grab the microphone, you can turn that nervousness, that fear into focused energy, into excitement just by changing your perspective in that moment. Trigger, the microphone in the hand, the trigger, open the stage, the trigger, bam, I'm here for you.
You just gave something so profound.
Think about, you triggered it, bro. If you're a realtor and you're driving around and you're nervous, I've never been a realtor. My sister's pretty high level. I don't know why I keep referring to that, but give me an example from the world other than athlete or speaker where if you understand the physiology of the mind, what we're discussing, which is a reality, that you can go from nervousness to relying on your preparation. You can go from nervousness to excitement in the twinkle of an eye if you just have the right trigger and are willing to go there immediately by taking action, not by thinking about it. Do something right now, and that's what triggers it is the action, not the thought. Do you agree?
100%, 1,000,000%, because I just realized that you did something that I've done time and time again after my first time I spoke on stage. I was so nervous, but then when I got on stage and I started thinking, serve these people, I got really excited and I was in a flow state and I started to think about it. I told you, basketball. I related it to that. Basketball, I was nervous. The ball went up, boom, flow state. That's the trigger, the ball. You said the same thing. Kickoff, you're nervous, you're nervous, you're nervous. The second that ball hits you, it's a trigger. Boom, good to go. You get on stage, you're walking up, you still probably get the butterflies, right?
Oh, yeah, because
Everyone does. Every big speaker out there gets them. You touch that mic, that's the trigger. Go time. Guys, think about that. If you are trying to get on stage and start speaking, or if you've done it before, think of something that is a trigger that is related to sports, related to something else where you can flip that mindset, flip that perspective to, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm excited to pour into these people and give them, you're up there for a reason.